We received a quick reply or a short answer from the Auditor General Office. It has a copy and paste of the logo of the Auditor General letterhead and printed on a regular paper. It does not have any official record for administrative purpose and no address. I mean, it does not have any official address. But the envelope says the address is 875 Heron Road, Ottawa, Ontario, K1A1A2. It is signed with a copy and paste signature of Jocelyn Lefebvre, Senior Communications Advisor. But this letter is actually prepared by Jane Doe. The content of this letter just reveals what this Jane Doe feels or thinks about the Auditor General and his responsibilities. She does not really know what the duties and responsibilities of the Auditor General. In this kind of issue, it is the same as a public input with zero cost. The Auditor General does not have to spend millions a year to seek public inputs. His duty is he does not have to jump directly into the field and help me, but investigate the Canada Revenue Agency. If you know what to do as a leader, and if you have staffs who have technical capacity, the cost of doing things is zero. If you use feelings, it costs millions. It reveals that this person is a person who does everything, but does not really know the real duties and responsibilities of the Auditor General. Therefore, her answer is what she feels. In short, this Jane Doe told me that this is a private matter and go to the taxpayer's ombudsman for help. This type of answer makes the gang members to feel more aggressive and bully as they chase after the small business operators for money. Looking at the billions of subsidies the government gives to the big businesses and looking at this scheme of making money, this audit is almost like robbing Paul to pay Peter. I remember I mentioned that Bruce Pettipas told me that David brings a lot of money through this audit's work by robbing and fraud people. And Bruce laughed. This letter is a scam. The reply from Minister Gail Shea is a shock. This is a scam letter indeed. This is the scam letter from Minister Gail Shea. Have you ever received a letter from people who are using a copy and paste of the letterhead of the Nigerian president with his electronic signature, in which they promise you 500 million US dollar? Yes, 500 million US money. It is too good to be true. But it is a scam. The letter of Minister Gail Shea is just the same, a scam. If you work for the government or in the government, you know that agency, department, and minister have different letterheads. Divisions, sections also have different letterheads. For example, if the ministry still has the Inspectorate General section, which the audit used to be, this will be the person responsible to reply, not the minister. The letter will be signed by the Inspector General, and the letterhead will show the Inspectorate General and the Ministry of National Revenue. There are two names. Division or section is used for formal communication. This letterhead of the Minister of National Revenue is a copy and paste. It is not printed on the real letterhead or on an official paper, but on a regular paper. Notice in the previous slide the letter of the Auditor General. It does not have the symbol of the Government of Canada. But in this letter, the letter of Minister Gail Shea, it has the copy and paste of the logo or symbol of the government of Canada. If in David's letters, all David's letters, the copy of the logo of the government of Canada is pasted on the bottom right corner of the letter. Sometimes it is out of the margin and the size is big or huge. In the Ministry of Gail Shea's letter, it is pasted on the bottom middle of the letter of the page, and the size of the letter is a little small. Also in the letter of the Auditor General and in this letter of Minister Gail Shea, they do not have the official record for administrative purpose. Notice the beginning and ending salutations. A minister official letter never starts with dear and ends with yours sincerely. This letter is full of lies. The content of this letter is more about praising David Hunt with his unethical and unprofessional performance. Or it says how ethical and how professional his performance was. A minister, a good minister, will not or will never say these kind of things. A minister investigates. Besides praising David, the content of this letter is just full of political language for justification and rationalization, but without the technicality or the merit of the duties and responsibilities of a minister who is responsible for the Canada Revenue Agency. As I mentioned before, the minister investigates, not speaking politically incorrect as if saying this is what I think or this is what I feel. Interestingly, as you see here, this letter carries the signature of Minister Gail Shea. So it is the minister who is doing the fraud or approving this fraudulent practice, and she does not want to use the official letterhead and official paper and not having the official record to avoid scandal. This indicates that not only the Canada Revenue Agency has been operating in a criminal environment, but also the Auditor General and the Ministry of National Revenue. They are also operating in illegal environment. They hire people who do white-collar crimes, and all their letters indicate that they approve this practice. This letter also contains political language that shows the minister agrees to this kind of audit, but without the merit and technicality of the responsibility of a minister of national revenue. It may also be that Minister Gail Shea signed on the dotted line without reading it because she had to leave in a rush. I used to work as a government official. I learned how the administrative people do similar scheme by inserting the letter with other important letters and have the minister sign it as quickly as possible. She must have signed it while in a rush, which is the same as the process former Minister Galliano went through in the sponsorship scandal. Alternatively, Minister Gail Shea may have signed a blank paper and John Doe did the rest. I confronted Bruce Pettipas about this scam letter. He admitted that the letter was not signed by the minister but by her secretary. This is a forgery. This is real forgery. It is a crime. So even at the minister's office, there are people who also involved in white-collar crime. They forge the signature of the leaders because the leaders never read the incoming and outgoing information. They work in a fast-paced environment, so they make the leaders to just sign on the dotted line and don't bother thinking. Time is a short supply to them. It is very sad to become a leader in this kind of environment if you are an honest leader. Referring to my comment about forgery, Bruce kind of laughed and told me to find an accountant to go through the appeal process. Bruce must have been familiar with this practice and he is closing his eyes. Or he must be the one who engineers this practice. His aim is the money. In the government system, the money is shared along the line of collusion. Therefore, they use the political language to cover each other's criminal deed. When a leader or an official closes his eyes to all these illegalities, to all these criminal activities, it means he is corrupt. We received a reply from the taxpayers' ombudsman. The ombudsman makes such a wonderful promise to help the taxpayers. However, among all the victims who have been audited, he is the most useless individual has ever been appointed to a job he does not even know. He is a criminal lawyer. First, we received a telephone call from his office. A person named Guy or Guy left us a message in our answering machine. He wanted to ask some privacy questions so that he could have access to the file at the Canada Revenue Agency. And he left a telephone number for us to contact him. We were never able to contact him because each time we dialed the number, the telephone seemed to be deactivated. Another cellular telephone. Who said that all these are legit? We used the official telephone number then. A woman replied and said that Guy or Guy will contact. We never received any more word from Guy or Guy. All of a sudden, we received a letter from the taxpayers' ombudsman. This letter is also printed on an unofficial paper and unofficial. The letterhead is a copy and paste. There's no official record but a file number 13/14-15889, which does not mean anything for a public issue. The logo of the Government of Canada is huge and pasted on the left corner of the letter, with the same margin of the letter. But the name and logo of the Canada Revenue Agency is beyond the margin. Do you think this is a legit letter? Get real. Because the letter contains copy and paste of the government symbols and the name and that of the Canada Revenue Agency, they do not have the right place to put all them, or they forget where exactly they should go. From David to Bruce, the Office of the Auditor General, the Minister, and the others, they pasted the logo and the symbol of the Government of Canada at the bottom on the right corner. In the ministerial shade of the letter, they pasted it on the bottom middle. Some put it in a little to the right. The letter from the ombudsman, this logo is pasted at the bottom corner on the left side. And the size of the letter is bigger than the size of the logo in all David's letter. The letter of the ombudsman is nothing but to justify the audit, regardless. For example, it said, the ministerial correspondence closing letter states that senior CRA officials carefully reviewed the file and they are satisfied that the audit was done according to CRA policies and procedures. The officials who reviewed the file agree that the auditor conducted himself courteously and professionally at all times while applying the law and auditing principles effectively. This is just another political language he copied from the scam letter of Minister Gail Shea. It is similar to what you said against what I think or what I feel, but without anything associated with the duty of a taxpayer's ombudsman. He ignored the fact that David stole our documents. He ignored the fact that David scattered all the folders all over the floor. He ignored the fact that David's audit work is a fraud because he does not have the technical knowledge and capacity himself. He, in fact, does not know what to do as a taxpayer's ombudsman. Therefore, he wanted us to go and find a lawyer. But more interestingly, this letter carries the name of Veronique Rochefort, Intake Officer, Office of the Taxpayers Ombudsman, but without a signature. This is just another copy and paste name, or simply a name and the letter is written by anybody, by Jane Doe or John Doe. I find it interesting how the government is becoming an amateur organization and they're supposed to be the leaders, and in this case their Jane Does and John Does are behave like children, people who are irresponsible and do not know what to do as leaders or are supposed to be assistants to the leaders. Well, if you never read, if you're a leader, never read, you never know what to do. The Auditor General told me to seek help from the Taxpayers Ombudsman. The Taxpayers Ombudsman told me to find a lawyer. The Ontario Minister of Consumer Affairs and Government Businesses told me to ignore it. From the same Minister of the Liberal Government, he told me to write to the CRA Intake Office. It is the same as they are telling me, go there, go here, and no one knows his or her duties and responsibilities. If you read, you may know what you should be doing. If you never read, you never know what you should be doing. Therefore, all federal government leaders are often lost or just simply lost. They are telling me to run around. They maybe tell other victims too, run around as well. So if you follow their suggestion, you become lost just as they are lost or just simply lost. The letter from the Competition Bureau signed by Alan Garneau, the Deputy Commissioner, and the second one was signed by Morgan Curry, Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Competition Bureau. Both say that this matter does not fall within the mandate of the Bureau, but this Bureau is the one who declares how to identify fraud, its consequences, where to report for fraud, and so forth. These people become leaders with the only thought in mind that their duty is to promote competition, nothing else, or they're just performing actors. Any person can promote competition. A federal leader should do more than this. There should be a balance. By the way, the more they promote competition, the more radical evils they create. Remember, the Kantian theory says competition causes radical evil. By June, we received a letter from Elaine Davis. Her letter is interesting. She used an envelope with a stamp address, Canada Revenue Agency, 875 Heron Road, Ottawa, Ontario, K1A 1A2. The same stamped envelope sent by the Office of the Auditor General. This address is no longer valid for all communications and payments as of October 1st, 2012. The postal code is also different. It does not belong to the Canada Revenue Agency address at 875 Heron Road. Her letter is unofficial. The symbols of the Government of Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency are copy and paste. This letter does not have any official record for administrative purpose. The symbol of the Government of Canada is pasted on the bottom left corner, which is different from that in all David's letters. In all David's letters, the symbol of the government of Canada is pasted on the bottom right corner. The size, some are big and some are small. They are never the same size because they are just copy and paste. They do not know the exact size and the place. She claims she is a collection officer of the Canada Revenue Agency, and her office is St. Catherine's Tax Service Office on the top left corner. But at the bottom, she gives her office, National Collection Compliance Center, which is not Canada Revenue Agency. This is Elaine's collection office, used to collect money from the victims while she is working in the Canada Revenue Agency. She has an office inside the Canada Revenue Agency. This is like the customer service people who work for companies that are selling computer program online. They block the customers from getting the program and refer the customers to their so-called technical support. These technical support are actually the customer service agents themselves. They pretend telling the customers, click here, click install repeatedly until they run out of option. The program installation never works, so they say, can we call you back? They never do because what they are doing is charging you for something that you do not have for the program, and they're supposed to be technical support. They are robbing the customers. The customers cannot contact the company because they block the company's contact address online. Same as Canada Revenue Agency. It always goes to them. So the company never knows that these people are stealing money from the company at the customer's expenses. This is the same as what Elaine is doing. She's using the government office and facility to collect money from the victims. She's conducting a business inside while claiming it is Canada Revenue Agency. This is a crime. At the bottom of her letter, she gives the address, 32 Church Street, Post Office Box 3038, St. Catharines, Ontario, L2R 3B9. This postal code belongs to the post office box, not the 32 Church Street. This address is no longer valid for all communications and payments as of October 1st, 2012. Her letter is dated June 14, 2013. In the content of her letter, she wants us to send the money or payment to 275 Pope Road, Suite 102, Summerside, PEI, C1N682. This address is also no longer valid for all communications and payments as of October 1st, 2012. Or she wants us to make payment through the online payment system. Based on our experience with the online payment system of the Canada Revenue Agency, the money we sent never reached the government. Of all payments we have made, even the recent payments we made, the money went to someone's account, a person whose social insurance number is the same as the business number my husband has. All checks made and sent to the Receiver General using the St. John's Tax Service Office, Post Office Box 12076, St. John's, Newfoundland, A1B44, never reached the Receiver General either. The money always ended up in this person's account. The person whose social insurance number is the same as my husband's business number. This address is also no longer valid for all communications and payments as of October 1st, 2012. I call the telephone number Elaine gives, 1-866-269-3013. It is a cellular telephone, so she answered right away. I said to her that if we are not paying, what are you going to do? She answered, we're going to take possession of your property. This is a threat. All my report and effort to seek help went to deaf ears because this mafia group has its people among the different organizations at the front line, and they gave me answer in political manner to cover each other's back. We also received my husband's notice of assessment for tax year 2012, and it said that all refunds are being withheld until the balance outstanding is paid in full. Another threat. This is brutal. So I decided to go to the Ontario Provincial Police for help. At the Ontario Provincial Police Office, the officer called Bruce using Bruce's cellular telephone number stated in David's letter or Bruce's letter and talked to him directly about this case. On the contrary, he asked the officer if he could talk with me instead. To me, he said, "What are you doing in the police office?" I told him, "I'm reporting all of you because you have been trying to fraud us using your position." He said, "Just go to an accountant who knows our appeal process and go through the appeal process." Then I said, "No, I'm also an accountant. I don't need an accountant." He told the police officer to tell me to go and seek an accountant and go through the appeal process. He said he's pissed off. Isn't this a force? They are caught as scammers. They are scamming, but using their position and authority, they are forcing us to pay. I do not have to look for an accountant because accountants do not really know how the audit should look like. They do not really know the government audit process, the audit plan, the audit questionnaires, and the audit tool. They do not really know how the audit should be conducted and its presentation. All they know or all they do is telling their clients to prove that HST paid on purchases as per purchase invoices or ITC claim equal 13% HST of bank book deposits, or sales per sales invoices or sales as claim equals bank book deposits. That is impossible. The officers know that this is a fraud, but they question me. Why is it all over the different organizations? I answer them, this is a collusion. People will never believe that this is Canada Revenue Agency. Yes, this agency may be good, but the people inside are not good. They are dishonest people. But this is just the beginning. Back at home, I called the Sudbury office, the appeals division, using the official number and asked for the status of the appeal. I did not dial the telephone number stated in the letter signed with an electronic signature of Lori Miller, Chief of Appeals, because each time I called that number, all I got was a voicemail of a woman. To my surprise, this time the girl on the other end said, "There is no record of any appeal made." I did not believe it. I called again the next day. I still received the same answer. I called again the next day for the third time and received the same answer. There is no record of any appeal made. The letter from the Ontario Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Government Businesses, I received an answer that sounds very political. It says, "There are people who call and claim they are from Canada Revenue Agency seeking money and asking for your privacy information," and so forth. The person was telling me what he reads in the newspaper or online. In other words, he was telling me to ignore this case. When the minister was replaced by the Liberal minister, I sent another letter. I received a reply that is just as useless as the other. This one, however, told me to write to the CRA intake office. From the Commissioner of the Competition Bureau, one who explains and warns the citizens about fraud, one who declares of the punishment of people who do fraud, one who explains how to identify fraud, yet he is also the person who ignores the law. He is a person who does not seem to know what he writes, just as the taxpayer's ombudsman does. All these leaders make a glamour promise when they are appointed, or when they were appointed, but they are all ill-equipped and do not really know what they should be doing. They never read my letters. They have their staffs to reply to my letter, and their answer is just another political language, justification, rationalization, praising, storytelling, and so forth. But without the technicality and merit that go with their position, authority, duties, and responsibilities. After my meeting with the Ontario Provincial Police officers, these people released my husband's T1 refund, the Ontario Trillium benefits, and the other refunds, except the HST. They transferred the money to their account, to the person in the Canada Revenue Agency who has the social insurance number the same as my husband's business number. So when we file the HST report, he takes all the refunds. When we make payments, there is no record in the unofficial notice of reassessment because the same person takes the money as well. So in the unofficial record of the notice of assessment, they keep adding the amount we owe to the notice of assessment. It is deceitful, isn't it? This is a theft. After this audit, letters we receive from the Canada Revenue Agency is no longer, or all the letters are no longer officials. There are so many contract people without training, everything becomes upside down. Every person can do just anything, and papers are no longer properly recorded officially, or it is just very dysfunction. In this dysfunctionality, the crime continues. It is an opportunity. That is why people don't like hiring knowledgeable people, but those who are willing to assist, to learn, and just be friendly. I wrote to the National Intake Center and received a letter saying that the minister is investigating. When I called the ministry office again, I was told it was resolved. I called Elaine's office. She said it was resolved. So as far as I know, it is resolved. After Minister Gail Shea was replaced by Minister Finley, I sent a letter to her and explained about this case. I received a reply signed by Brenda Paquette, and she claimed she is the manager of the Executive Correspondence Section. The letter is also unofficial and very personalized. It is printed on a regular paper with a copy and paste of the name and logo of the Canada Revenue Agency and the Government of Canada. But it is supposed to be of Form R350E. Her copy of the symbol of the Government of Canada is pasted on the left bottom corner and a little inside the margin, while the size is rather huge than the usual size. There is no official record for administrative purpose. She used a stamp date, and there is no address. In the age of technology, all crimes are computer related, and with the current system of the government, everyone can do everything. There's no leadership. Therefore, it is easy to become corrupt, especially when you work in the department or agency that brings money, or when you are promised money. In this dysfunctional system of government, any person can claim she acts on behalf of the minister, In this case, the Minister of National Revenue, just like Cheryl Boniface. This person is actually like the front door. Once my letter came in or arrived, she answered right away. She said, on behalf of the Honorable Carrie Lindy Finley, Minister of National Revenue, I thank you for your correspondence of March 27, 2014. I assure you that the appropriate officials of the Canada Revenue Agency will review the issues raised. Brenda claimed that she is acting on behalf of Minister Finley, but she is not working at the Ministry of National Revenue. Her letter says this is the Canada Revenue Agency. If the letter is from the Ministry of National Revenue, it will say so in the letter. As I said, her letter does not even have an address. How in the world a person writes a letter claiming on behalf of Minister of National Revenue, but there's no official letterhead, there's not on official paper, and there is no address? Who said that this is legit? Minister Finley never read my letter. She never know anything. Brenda may also be working at other government organizations at the same time. So in answering this letter, she became confused herself, and her letter does not mean anything but just something to say. As I said, the minister never read my letter. If she did, the letter should go to the investigator or internal affairs. This is a matter of technicality, not a matter of political correspondence. But Brenda did it all, and she made her own reply. She said the CRA will review, but it never does because Brenda may be one of the mafia members. She kept the letter. She answered on behalf of the gang, not the minister. She is not acting on behalf of the minister. This is Brenda's letter. Yes, Brenda is one of the members, and every gang member has the stamp address of the Canada Revenue Agency at 875 Heron Road, Ottawa, Ontario, K1A 1A2, an address that is no longer valid for all communications and payments as of October 1st, 2012. This postal code is not that of the Canada Revenue Agency at 875 Heron Road, though. It is used to be the technology section that works for the agency under government contract. Her envelope has two different addresses. Canada Revenue Agency, 875 Heron Road, Ottawa, Ontario, K1A 1A2, which is the same address Elaine Davis or the Office of the Auditor General use. The second one is Executive Correspondence and Language Services Division, 555 Mackenzie Avenue, Ottawa, Ontario, K1A 0L5. Her letter does not even have any address, but the address on the envelope is Executive Correspondence and Language Services Divisions. But inside she said she's acting on behalf of Minister Finley. Does it make sense to you? And you claim, as Corporal Julie Coor and Corporal Kotor said, it is legit. However, before this letter, I was told it was resolved. So things should be back to formal. This is not legit. This is fraud. We never heard anything from the Canada Revenue Agency agents since, believing that the case was resolved. By May 2014, we received a telephone call from someone who introduced herself as Alka Guy. She left us a message in our answering machine saying that she is from the Canada Revenue Agency Appeals Division. She left us a telephone number 905-430-9146 that we should call her back. It is a cellular telephone. This is not official. Why an appeal officer approach us through the telephone? And it is funny. Each time we called this number, there was nothing. The cellular telephone was not active. She finally sent us her letter. Her letter is unofficial, no letterhead, not on an official paper but on a regular paper, and it has the copy and paste of the name and symbol of the Canada Revenue Agency. Isn't this interesting? A letter from the so-called appeal officer of the Canada Revenue Agency? Alka Guy started her letter with a sentence, "I have been assigned the review of the GST-HST Notice of Objection dated February 8, 2013. Something does not seem right. Previously, the Office of the Appeals Division said that there is no record of any appeal made. All of a sudden, Alka came on the scene, saying that she has been assigned to review this case. This must be what Bruce said, 'I'll fix it.' He got the person who handles the mail to give my application to Alka before it reaches the office. Therefore, it never goes to the official record. This audit is not official, so all should be unofficial. It is a fraud. She used an envelope with a stamp address, Canada Revenue Agency, 1050 Notre Dame Avenue, Sudbury, Ontario. There is no letterhead of the Appeals Division, no official record for administrative purpose, but there is said our file GB 13065-1317291, and the letter is printed on a regular paper. It is individually prepared. From all the letters we received, there is no references. All of a sudden, in Alka's letter, she put down our file GB 13065-1317291. If it is officially prepared, it should have the official record, official letterhead, and the letter should carry both the name of the Ministry of National Revenue, Canada Revenue Agency, and the Appeals Divisions. There are 3 names. Why all these are important? Because it tells the people who carry the responsibilities in this case. It is not Alka Guy. The agency is so dysfunctional that every person can claim he is somebody. Alka gave a little comforting word as she says, "We are committed to an appeal process that is open, transparent, fair, and impartial." This is a robber who wants to make herself presentable. Then she started with her lies. Her second paragraph says, "The reason basis of your objection is that you believe you reported all the income and expenses correctly and you disagree with audit position and object to the assessment dated February 19, 2013. You believe that the bank book analysis method used is not an appropriate audit technique in this circumstance, and you further assert that you are entitled to all disallowed input tax credits." I never said any of this in the notice of objection, which I showed in the previous slide. I asked for a re-audit and stated the fact that the numbers are fictitious. I also said that there has never been any auditing done. She just made it up. She lied because she thinks we are stupid. You have to make a person to feel stupid first if you want to deceive him or rob him. A federal government appeal officer started her letter with lies and accusation. She continued, the bank deposit analysis is a tool commonly used by the Canada Revenue Agency, or CRA, in auditing owner-operated businesses. A bank deposits analysis can be a useful method of verifying the completeness of sales in a small business. This statement is basically she quoted from Bruce Pettipas' letter. In other words, she is admitting that they can make a lot of money when they use bank book to audit a small business operator. This is a deceitful practice. Notice the copy and paste of the federal government or the Canada Revenue Agency logo, and the reference number started with GB. If all letters we receive from the Canada Revenue Agency, such as David, Bruce, Lori Miller, Chief of Appeals, all are without references, Alka's letter has a reference number started with the initial GB. In an official process, the reference letter carries from the auditor to the appeal process and also to the court. It is a continuation. It does not make sense that from David to Lori Miller there is no reference number. All of a sudden, the appeal officer, Alka Guy, issued a reference number? This does not make sense. This reference number is just a pretend to make the appeal looks formal, but it is actually a fraud. Then the address at the bottom of her letter. She wrote Eastern Ontario Tax Service Office, 55 Athol Street, Oshawa, Ontario, L1H1J8. The telephone number, again a cellular telephone, 905-430-9146, and the fax number, 905-430-5717. These are Whitby numbers, belong to her personally. This address is a fake address. Canada Revenue Agency does not have an office in Oshawa. The Eastern Ontario Tax Service Office is located at 200 Town Centre Court, Toronto, Ontario, M1P 4Y3. After I told Alka that her telephone is not active, she activated it. Well, it is a mobile telephone. After activating it, we were still not able to talk to her, but only getting her voicemail saying Alka Guy. Later on, I told her about her voicemail. She changed it to Alka Guy from the Canada Revenue Agency Appeals Division. Interesting, isn't it? But always a voicemail, never a direct answer, or she never answered the telephone. Like David, Bruce, and the others, she also proposed personal communication, as she said on the first page of her letter. If you require any documentation from Appeals Division pertaining to the issues under objection, please contact the undersigned appeals officer. This is unethical. She also claims she is an appeal officer from the Appeals Division. The Appeals Division's address is in Sudbury, but her address is a fake address in Oshawa. Her envelope says 1050 Notre Dame Avenue, Sudbury, Ontario. This is a scam. It also does not make sense. The first letter from the Sudbury office was signed Lori Miller, the Chief of Appeals, with an electronic signature. Now it is written and sent directly by Alka Guy, the appeal officer from Oshawa. If a letter is signed by the leader, it should be signed by the leader all through the way. If it is signed by Lori Miller, the Chief of Appeals, it should be signed by Lori Miller in all letters. Do you believe this? Before answering to her questions, I asked her to identify herself, her status, whether she is a public servant, a contractor, or whatever, explain the reference number, and that she has to come to our premises, and I will document everything. This is something that we should do with David Hunt, but we didn't out of respect. In her second letter, she identified herself as an independent appeal officer. If she is an independent appeal officer, why didn't she say so in her letter? On the contrary, she presented herself as a federal government appeal officer. It is illegal for her as an independent officer to claim that she works on behalf of the minister and tries to fraud us together with the other mafia members. I think what she was doing is using or banking on the minister's status. This way, she may not be subject to punishment or penalty, even though she is committing a crime. She could not explain the reference, what GB stands for. She said it is given by Canada Revenue Agency. It does not make sense that an appeal officer, one who issues the letter directly and processes its mailing with a reference number started with the letter GB, does not know what it means or what it stands for. All letters from the Canada Revenue Agency does not have any official record. All of a sudden, it has a reference number given by ALCA, but she does not know what it means. Formally, a reference number for the government associates with the organization specialization, the division specialization, the unit or section, and the person responsible for an issue, because the government is an academic and scientific field, a field of managerial application, and the last is what issue it is. The initial GB with the numbers do not tell anything. ALCA does not even know what it is. Yes, the GB does not mean anything. Therefore, it is easy to manipulate, and that numbers can be anything. They have no meaning in the government filing system. There is no such thing that a person is expert in every issue, as in the case of the customer service. When we claim that we are experts in every issue, we offend many, but in the end, we actually know nothing, as in the saying, Jack of all trades, master in none. She requested that we should send all our documents to her, make a list that cross-reference all the invoices associated with the bank book deposits. They have too much. A requirement that does not make sense. No wonder all the victims cannot do it. Then concerning my request that she should get the documents from David Hunt and returns to us, she quoted the subsection 299, verse 1 of the Excise Tax Act. The minister is not bound by any return, application, or information provided by or on behalf of any person. In addition, the minister may make assessment notwithstanding or in the absence of any return, application, or information. In other words, she's telling me that the minister is a irresponsible and non-accountable person. She is a child and she is irresponsible. Because of this statement, I told her that she should come to our premises. And if the minister is such a irresponsible and non-accountable person, that we do not trust the minister. We do not even trust her. She was telling me that she is acting on behalf of the minister, but irresponsible and non-accountable. Who makes this act? Imagine if all ministers and leaders use this subsection of this act for their benefits. Then we will have many crooked leaders, irresponsible, non-accountable leaders throughout the generation. Or we may have a bunch of children as leaders and they just run around in the public office. After all, they are not responsible. You know what the proverb says? When the leaders are crooked, the subordinates are evils. No wonder the people who work at the Canada Revenue Agency are ignorant, bully, dictator, irresponsible, and non-accountable. These subsections should never have any place in the Excise Tax Act or in any acts. An appeal officer should know the technicality of an audit. Therefore, I asked her to send me the audit plan, the questionnaires, and the tool that we could use. Her technical capacity should be higher than those below her. Bruce Pettipas, chartered accountant, also does not have that technical capacity. She does not have that technicality and the ability to correct the mistakes. Her duty is to make money by robbing the innocent citizens, using the audit scheme that has been designed and used by the bottom level. Therefore, she just argues, speak politically incorrectly to justify their deeds because the purpose of this audit is to make money. She wanted me to send her all the documents and make out a list that corresponds sales and purchase invoices equal bank deposits, or that HST paid on purchases based on purchase invoices equals 13% of the HST of the bank book deposits. And then the final audit result is that HST, 13% HST as per sales invoices equal bank book deposits of 3 people. This is impossible. She wanted me to prove that HST paid on purchases or input tax credits as purchase invoices plus HST per sales invoices equal 13% of the bank book deposits belongs to 3 people? This is impossible. I asked her to provide me with the audit plan, the questionnaires, the tool, and because the task of an appeal officer is to correct the mistake done by the lower level. In this case, David Hunt and Bruce Pettipas. So they have to know more about the technicality of an audit for whatever business it is. If David Hunt and Bruce Pettipas use only the bank book, the appeal officer should use the invoices because no one can see the existence of GST, HST in the bank book deposits. And as the higher level officers, she should know more than the bottom level staffs. She should use the right tool, which is the SOR 9145. Unfortunately, her language is just another political language to justify, to rationalize, and to make excuses in order to get the money while getting away with their crime. The most interesting thing about Alka Guy is that she does not know where her office is located. She is an appeal officer who goes to the office every day but does not know the address, so she has to ask first. She told me that they do not use an office but only mailboxes, which is the 55 Athol Street, Oshawa. Is this Canada Revenue Agency? I demanded that she should give me her address. Her letter does not match with her oral statement that they do not have an office address but only a mailing address. Is this make sense? I raised my case. These people use mailing addresses to deceive, rob, and fraud. The Canada Revenue Agency does not have an office or none in Oshawa. Her envelope says the office is in 1050 Notre Dame Avenue, Sudbury, but inside her letter, it is a different address, Oshawa and Whitby, surrendering to my demand, she eventually gave me her office address, which is 1550 Wentworth Street, Whitby. Then I asked her, why all your letters say Eastern Ontario Tax Service, 55 Athol Street? Her revelation reminds me that all victims go to Whitby to negotiate with them, the appeal officers. And the place looks almost like a warehouse. Is this Canada Revenue Agency? She wrote the letter with a reference number but does not know its meaning or what the initial GB stands for. She signed her name and said the appeals officer, but admitted she is an independent officer. Things do not seem too much. If she is an independent appeal officer, she should sign her name as an independent appeal officer. This is the same as masquerading as the Canada Revenue Agency appeal officer while she is actually not. When I mentioned to her about her telephone sounds dead or inactive, she said, no, it is active. So after her second letter, she put a voicemail in her cellular telephone. First, she said, Alka Guy. However, she never answered the telephone. You can only hear her voicemail. After my fifth try and left her a message, she finally answered. Then she changed it to Alka Guy of the Canada Revenue Agency Appeals Division. She wanted to make it real, but it is not real. This telephone number is actually a personal number or a mobile number, not the telephone number of the Canada Revenue Agency. So is her fax machine. Both go directly to her. Alka sent 2 letters. All her letters just contain political debate, but never once she mentioned about the technicality of an audit. She quoted the subsection of the Excise Tax Act, but she is not able to apply this act or portion of it to the practice of auditing. Basically, political argument is like my word against your word, or your word against what I feel. When I said to her, all your words are just political language and they do not mean anything because you need the technicality. This is a matter of technicality, not political argument. She is just hiding or using the verses of the Excise Tax Act, but the audit itself she does not know. I did say to her, you are welcome to come and do the audit in our premises the way David Hunt did, and I will document everything. I mean, everything. So she quit. I think she's afraid of being documented. I did not do it with David. I should have. Alka quits, also because I told her, you want our money, you can take us to court. As Alka quits, Cyril Boniface, who claims she is the appeal team leader, took over. She sent a letter which is unofficial and out of the ordinary, something that the Canada Revenue Agency never does. She used a registered mail, but it is not addressed to my husband. She addressed it to me. Why? These people or these gang members know that most small business people or the small business operators will come to negotiate with them in Whitby. So they get the money. These small business people or the small business operators pay out of fear or they submit to avoid the headache, and because these people are very militant and bully and have been threatening them. No one likes to face with bully people. So the victims surrender and pay. They destroy the lives of the small business operators. They know that my husband will pay, but he is being protected by me, who is able to read and analyze all these scam letters and the audit work or the audit report. Therefore, she addressed her letter to me. This is not the practice of the Canada Revenue Agency or a professional government. Her envelope has a stamp address, Canada Revenue Agency, 1050 Notre Dame Avenue, Sudbury, Ontario, P3A5C1. Her letter is unofficial though. It has the copy and paste of the government logo and the name of the Canada Revenue Agency. But notice at the beginning of her letter, on the top left corner of her letter, she typed the word registered, which is unusual. The logo or symbol of the Government of Canada, it is the same size as that in the unofficial letter, signed with the electronic signature of Lori Miller, the Chief of Appeals, but it is pasted on the third quarter of the page at the bottom right corner. It is not positioned as in the letters of David's, Bruce, Alka's, and the others. Well, this is copy and paste, so they don't really know the exact position. Then her letter says, your objection is disallowed and a reassessment is confirmed. Then she lied, just like Alka did, by saying, the basis of your objection is that the GST HST reassessment dated February 19, 2013 for the period July 1, 2010 to March 31, 2012 is not correct. Your representation is that you reported all your earnings correctly. You assert that the audit assessment for the unreported GST HST collectible in the amount of $6,027.34 based on the bank deposit analysis is incorrect. You further claim that you are entitled to the input tax credits in the amount of $18,550.49 because you incurred expenses to earn business income. You also dispute the gross negligence penalty in the amount of $1,902.26 and the late filing penalty and interest charge for the audit period ending March 31st, 2012. I never said any of this. I said in the notice of objection, I want a re-audit. There has never been any audit done. And the numbers are so fictitious. And like David Hunt, Cheryl created a fictitious number, $1,902.26, which she says the amount of disputes the gross negligence penalty. And this amount does not match with what she said that according to David, and as he said, Section 285 of the Excise Tax Act, and a lie in calculation. The penalty amount is $6,144.46. She seemed so desperate to make the money that she lied. A federal government team leader of appeals started her letter with a lie and an accusation. Her statement of accusation is different from that of Alka. How in the world the appeals team leader makes a different assessment while things are actually the same? If Alka did not mention the date and numbers, Cheryl did. Maybe it is their understanding that by inserting numbers, any numbers, fictitious numbers, they think it is to show me the technicality of the audit. But this is not the technicality of an audit. This is just creating more lies. This is what happens when people are appointed to a position without knowledge and proper training. They do work based on lies. No wonder this agency is very much dysfunctional. Everyone does everything based on feelings. And in the auditing, they do it by accusing, finger pointing, blaming, and scapegoating, just as the way the politicians do. In fact, by reading David's Schedule 1, it is full of accusations, such as his accusation that between the husband and the wife we received over $7,000 refunds from the federal government. But for what? There is no such record. They don't exist. Unless, based on Bruce's statement in his letter, the refunds go to the person whose social insurance number is the same as my husband's business number. This is the same as theft. He is using my husband and my identity and steal money from public treasury. Then, at the same time, he steals the money my husband entitles to receive from the HST refund and the payment he makes for the HST amount he owes to the government. This is a crime. Although these people have adopted the way the politicians presented themselves by accusing, finger pointing, blaming, and scapegoating, this behavior indicates that the persons are emotionally immature, unjust, cruel, and morally displeasing and damaging. Hiding behind the Excise Tax Act, she also said that the auditor uses bank book deposit analysis, but there has never been any bank book analysis. The technicality of bank book analysis requires numbers crunching, not a simple reviewing. The technicality of bank book analysis requires that you have to separate personal and business, the government refunds or rebates, and also in this case you should separate the husbands and the wives because this is a joint and a combination account. On the contrary, David added our son's money to make his assessment larger. So he wanted the money from 3 people, not only 1 person, but 3 people. She continued on with her lies while quoting different verses of the Excise Tax Act. She gave me the hint of the money we should pay, which is total adjustment, $24,577.83 plus penalty amount, $6,144.46, which is different from what she said at the beginning of her letter, $1,902.26, the amount of dispute and penalty. Added these 2 numbers, she said that my husband owes them, not the government, a total of $30,722.29. This amount is very much the amount of money we had in our bank book or bank account at the time David came to do the audit. It is the total money in the bank belongs to 3 people. This is a robbery. It is a crime. Most victims give up and file for bankruptcy. They are only small guys. These people do not go after big corporations or big companies because besides having accountants behind them, the big corporations or big companies support the politicians and political parties. The politicians do not go after them because when they quit politics or when they leave public office, they go to work as lobbyists for these big companies or corporations. Without knowledge and proper training, these auditors can only go after the small guys. It is easy to victimize them. Cheryl used the same address Alka used. Toronto East Tax Services Office Appeals Division, 55 Atoll Street East, Oshawa, Ontario, L1H1J8. And the fax number 905-430-5717. This is ALCA's fax number, a Whitby fax number. So is the telephone number, a Whitby telephone number. But she added the French translation of the address, which ALCA's letter does not have. She also typed Appeals Division, which ALCA's letter does not have. Who says this is a legit audit? This is a fake address of the Canada Revenue Agency. This is, as ALCA's admitted, their mailing address, not the real address of the Canada Revenue Agency. She used a stamp date, which also indicates unofficial. In the government, the stamp date is usually used for unofficial internal communication, not for external communication. Interesting, isn't it? Here's another interesting thing. She said that her letter is dated in Whitby at this July 31st, 2014, but she used an address on the first page of her letter, Toronto East Tax Services Office, Appeals Division, 55 Athol Street East, Oshawa, Ontario. The address on her envelope is 1050 Notre Dame Avenue, Sudbury, Ontario, which is the address of the Appeals Division. Then, as I mentioned in the slide about ALCA's letter, the Toronto East Tax Services Office is located in Toronto, 200 Town Court Center. It does not make sense, does it? A fake address. Then she signed her letter by saying, Minister of National Revenue, per Cheryl Boniface, Team Leader, Appeals Division. For a person who never learns about the administration or letters, he believes that this letter indicates that Cheryl is acting on behalf of the Minister of National Revenue. Yes, she's telling us that this is the Minister of National Revenue, Gail Shea. This is a scaremonger tactics. She wanted us to be afraid and pay. If this is a letter from the Minister of National Revenue, it should be on a special letterhead, just like the minister's scam letters before, the ministerial letterhead. It should use official paper. It should be printed on an official paper. She's telling us that this is the Minister of National Revenue and she's acting on the minister's behalf. In reality, this letter says that it is not her acting on behalf of the minister, but the minister is acting on her behalf. The minister is the person at the highest position, but Cheryl is telling us that she has more authority than the minister. So she's telling the minister what to do, rob the people. Do you believe it? The minister does not know anything and never knows about all these fraudulent activities. The minister never reads my letter. The minister knows nothing. The minister never even knows that people who are working in the Canada Revenue Agency have been stealing people's identity and stealing money from the citizens and public treasury at the same time, such as in our case. She is masquerading herself as a person above the minister. She included in her letter, as she said at the bottom of her letter, Form RC 4443-3, appealing GST HST assessment to the Tax Court of Canada. But there is no Form RC 4443-3. There is no such Form RC 4443-3. It is only the front cover of the form that explains the informal procedure and the general procedure about the eligibility of filing to the tax court, fees, and so forth. To make things smooth, she proposed that we should call Alka Guy, the appeals officer, at 905-430-4196, which is a mobile telephone. She wanted us to go through this process personally because all the processes are indeed personally processed. Most victims took this bait and filed their case to the tax court after paying the amount they negotiated with Alka Guy or the other gang members, including Cheryl, in a warehouse or a look-like warehouse in Whitby. Other victims just give up and do not pursue. Judges at the tax court are politically appointed directly from their private practice. They do not have the knowledge about private sector accounting and public sector accounting or finance, especially auditing. When they get in, they also bring in with them their own staffs who help them in lobbying the politicians or doing fundraisings for the politicians. It is easy to recruit these people to become the members. They are like the eyes and the ears of this mafia gang to find out who makes the filing. To keep the victims from proceeding, they put these victims' file in the back burner. So it takes years for them to go through. They just pile them up. By the time they get through, the judges or the judge sides with the Canada Revenue Agency or throw the case out because too old. In other scenario, they propose to the judge that they should make out-of-court settlement because the court is so swamped with this type of case. So for the victims who dare to go through this process, these bad people clean them well. During the out-of-court settlement, they drain the victim's bank account, their properties, and destroy the victims' lives. These victims never realize that they have spent thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars of their life savings and future negotiating deals with a gang of robbers who are smart to use their position in the government and the government process and facility to prey on their victims. They use real process to make it look like a legit process, but it is actually a fraud. It is an abuse of power and authority. It is a crime. Once in the court, although judges were supposed to be impartial, they tend to side with this agency. For example, as Bruce Petipas quoted the word of Judge Little in the case of Abdullah Falibegi versus Her Majesty the Queen in 2009 case. In this case, Judge Little stated that officials of the CRA are entitled to challenge the income reported by the taxpayers by carrying out net worth analysis or by reviewing the actual deposits made to the taxpayer's bank account in order to determine if the taxpayers reported all his income. This indicates that the judge agrees with the CRA practice of using the bank book as the audit tool because he does not know the right tool to be used. He does not know any difference. By the way, the statement that using bank book to carry out a net worth analysis is not true. Net worth analysis needs some calculations, not by viewing a person's bank book. In addition, the federal government has an audit tool which is called SOR 9145, but the judge does not know it. In a case of joint and combination account, an auditor has to do a lot of work. Since the auditor only uses bank book, the rest of the numbers he created to make it like plenty of information, but they are actually fictitious information. These fictitious numbers are just to manipulate and deceive the victims, while the true aim is the total money in the bank book. They also put their people in almost every government organizations at the front line in where they think people will report them, even at the Prime Minister's office. When one of the citizens wrote to the politician in his constituency, I mean the member of parliament, and told him that he was being audited for the GST-HST, and the politician wrote to the Canada Revenue Agency, the politician was fired by Prime Minister Harper. When money becomes the sole aim of our professional activity, especially when we are using our position in the government, this is the same as murdering. To me, these people can use their political language, but if they do not have the technicality, they are just like the empty barrel. An empty barrel always sounds louder than a full barrel. I spoke to one of the tax lawyers who usually does the negotiation with these auditors or the appeal officers. He agreed with me that this is a combination of reality and fraud. He may have negotiated deals with the appeal officers for the same reason, but never knows that he is negotiating with a bunch of robbers. So he said it is unique. Yes, it is unique. They use the legit audit process, use the government facility, use the government's name, claim it as the government, steal our identity. But it is a scam. It is a fraud. Cheryl made her assessment, refusing to come and do the appeal in our premises. She wrote, "Appeals reviewed the assessment and noted that the claim of the net tax is in the amount of $24,577.83 related to unreported GST-HST and disallowed GST-HST. She reduced the portion of our son's money, but still the wife's money is still there. How could that be? When you are an appeal officer, you must know more than what the auditor and his audit team leader know, because you have to correct their mistakes. This is what the appeal process is all about. When the bottom makes mistakes, the top fixes it or corrects it. In this case, both Alka and Cheryl agree with what David and Bruce did because they do not have the knowledge and the technical capacity themselves. They do not know any difference. They just use political language to make it as if they know. Especially, they laden their letters with verses of the Excise Tax Act. It is almost like the top does what the bottom says. This reminds me of what David Hunt said to me at the time. I felt like he was kind of bully. I tell people what to do. I tell my supervisor what to do. He gave me the impression that the leaders are just symbolic. They are just a fill-in to make sure the money comes in. A person acts as a bully, ignorant, coercive, and militant because he is covering his knowledge illiterate, his lackness, and his pride. At the same time, he is showing how cruel he is, how unjust he is, and how emotionally immature he is. Since January 2013, these scammers, I mean the person who has the social insurance number the same as my husband's business number, has been taking all the refunds that my husband is entitled to receive and the payments he made to the receiver general. All of a sudden, we receive a telephone call from Barnaby, BC. A person named Karim Adatia claimed he is from the Canada Revenue Agency and wanted to talk to me. The people in this mafia group seems to have communicated with each other. They know that if they want to talk to my husband concerning the GST-HST case, they ask for me instead. He knows my name. I asked him, "How do you know my name?" He laughed and brushed it off. He said, "I just want to clarify the numbers in your last HST report." I asked him, "Who are you and what are you?" He said he is the examiner and deals with the GST, HST refund and integrity. Then I questioned him, "Are you a public servant or a contractor?" Lovingly, he said that he is a public servant. I told him, "I do not believe so. A public servant will not do things over the telephone. A person can be anybody over the telephone. If you want information from me, do it in writing." He bargained with me. "How about I send you a fax?" I said, "Still, you have to do it in writing. I do not have a fax machine." Then he said, "If it is in writing, someone else will have to do it. It will take a while. I just want to ask about the numbers. So can I send you a fax?" I said, "Sure." I gave him the fax number of a printing office in town I always deal with. In no time, I received a call from the printing office. There is a fax for me. Notice the letterhead or the address: Fraser Valley and Northern Tax Service Office, Post Office Box 9070, Station, Maine, 9737 King George Boulevard, Surrey, BC, V3T 5W8. This address is no longer valid for all payments and communications as of October 1st, 2012. Karim's fax dated August 7, 2014. This is the address Bruce wanted me to send the notice of objection, not to the Sudbury, the Office of the Appeals Division. This address is no longer valid for almost 2 years. Why he is still using it? Because it is to scam people. The cover sheet is not a formal sheet. He gave a telephone number 1-855-587-3690, which is a mobile telephone. But he was actually calling from 1604-951-5660. This is also a cellular telephone, a local telephone number, and a scammers. So if you call these two numbers, it goes directly to them. This is actually, while the fax number is a personal fax as well, not the official Canada Revenue Agency fax number. He claimed he is a refund integrity examiner, audit division, but he is not working for the Canada Revenue Agency and not a public servant. He is a collection person used by this gang to collect the GST, HST refunds from the government to the victims. He's the techie guy. He argued that if someone else has to send a letter or request, it takes longer. I just want to know whether the number is true or not. I said to him, "I have all the time to wait for the communication. I know that they are the people who will take the refund away, so I can wait." People in the government today are working in a fast-paced environment, so they do not think anymore. Whatever they want from you, they want it done fast. They want the money first. They want your reply in 14 days, 10 days, 15 days, or 30 days. The government should never work in a fast-paced environment. This is one of the reasons that people who work in the governments are becoming like robots. They do things without thinking. They make their reply fast without thinking, just speaking politically, and people will go away. If you read some of the letters I have presented here in this slide presentation, it reveals that these people consider public problems as a nuisance. So like a child, they just tell you to go here, go there. But it also reveals that they do not have the technical capacity and do not know what to do according to their leader's position and authority. They just talk according to their feelings. In this case, I take my time to study their work, language, and all their schemes. If you fall for their fast pace, you will fail because they make you not able to think as well but do just as they tell you what to do, and you become lost. This is why you notice they introduce their supervisor after the fact, which is the same as they dictate their supervisor what to do. The supervisor cannot think but just do what the staff says or sign on the dotted line because the leader do not really know their duties and responsibilities. They also do not have the technical capacity and knowledge expertise. The content of Karim Adatia's facts has nothing. It's just to tell me that he is a public servant. He wanted me to know that he is a public servant, so he is sending me these facts, but there's nothing to it. Came the letter from Michael Bertacco. He also claimed himself as an examiner, GST HST Refund Integrity Program, Audit Division, the same position Karim Adatia holds. Something does not make sense here. Karim claimed he has a certified management accounting credential, or he is a certified management accountant. But Michael has a 2-year college diploma in event preparation, and his position is supposed to be higher than that of Karim? Is this positioning made the government more efficient? I don't think so. It makes it easy for the robbers to operate in the government, and the leaders do not know anything. The leaders receive the money and shut their mouths or close their eyes. They do not know any difference. He used the same address Karim used. Post Office Box 9070, Station Main 9737, King George Boulevard, Surrey, BC, Fee 3T 5W8. An address that is no longer valid for all payments and communications. In other words, citizens should not make any communications with anybody in this office. Michael gave his cellular telephone number, 604-587-2952. This number ties to another long-distance telephone number, a cellular telephone, 1-855-587-2952. If you call these two numbers, he answers you, but always a voicemail, never an answer. Well, they are cellular telephones. Karim Adatia's fax is dated August 8, 2014, while Michael Bertacco's letter is dated September 4, 2014. It has been 2 years. This mailing address is no longer valid, but they are still using it because this is for a fraud. Michael's letters is unofficial. It contains the copy and paste of the name and logo of the Canada Revenue Agency and the logo of the Government of Canada, which is pasted on the left corner of the letter, a little inside the margin, but only on the first page. As I mentioned earlier, the name and logo are copy and paste. Therefore, these people do not really know the exact position they should go. How interesting. Like David Hunt with a bottom-up approach, Michael Bertacco also introduced his team leader Ryan Tompkins and gave Ryan's cellular telephone number, which is 1-855-587-2784. They always give cellular telephone number because they want to deal personally. It is like a backroom deal. It is funny. When I was studying taxation, my professor, who was also working at the Canada Revenue Agency at that time, said that there are lots of underground economic activities, and auditing the small guys is part of combating underground economic activities. Interestingly, inside the Canada Revenue Agency, there's also an underground activity, a white-collar crime, corruption, collusion, bribery, grafts, money laundering, transferring money from the taxpayer's bank to their bank account and from the public account to their bank account. They even work or receive inputs from the big businesses, such as the Home Builders Association, about the underground economic activities in this field of work. Interestingly, the Home Builders Association has been receiving millions or even billions of annual subsidy from the government, federal government, or the taxpayers, including money from the small business operators whom the Canada Revenue Agency has been audited and will audit. Michael also gave the telephone number of the Canada Revenue Agency's customer service, 1-855-587-2952. This is also Michael's telephone number. This is the number used to call us soon after David Hunt released his notice of reassessment. The person left a message in our answering machine asking for the money, but first he wanted to talk to our accountant. He wanted to propose a negotiation with our accountant to make it look like legit. So Michael was telling me that he is the person who manages the customer service of the Canada Revenue Agency. More interestingly, Michael wanted us to send our letter directly to him, not to anybody else, or through the official address, but to this unofficial address. He said that we should send our letter to Michael Bertacco, Examiner, GST HST Refund Integrity Program, Audit Division 445-05, FVNTSO, 3rd floor. And the address, of course, 9737 King George Boulevard, Post Office Box 9070, Station Main, Surrey, BC, V3T 5W6. The Canada Revenue Agency in Surrey, BC has a mailing address that separates the people and the building from the flow or handling of communication. The mailing address and post office box address are like the Canada Revenue Agency's supply chain. No wonder the system becomes so dysfunctional.